Hi, this is Graphically Alex coming at you with all things fat related. If that's something that interests you, please subscribe. I'd love to have you. So today, the crown is on, the road is long, we carry on. Try to have fun in the meantime. We are going to look at diet culture stuff today. I have like a saved playlist or like a saved thing where I have all this stuff that I want to go through. I don't know. I'm kind of just going to pick things at random, basically, and just go for it. I'm coming at this as somebody, I would consider myself a weight loss veteran. I've been losing for 3 years, 3 long years, but I've kept it off. So yeah, I've lost 150 pounds, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So honestly, I've lost a lot more than a lot of the people that are on here. So I do think that I have a right to speak on it, and I'm going to. And I'm going to try to provide nuance to a black and white industry, which is basically diet culture. It's extremely black and white. Usually the truth is somewhere in the middle. Always remember that at this stage, especially in a vanity weight era where your margins are very thin, pun intended, it's very much choose your own adventure. It has to do with what will work for you at the time. And there's a lot less generalities you can make rather than if you're talking about super morbid obesity, for example, which is highly, highly physical. And there's things that will apply to basically every super morbidly obese person. It's the complete opposite at this stage. So we're going to talk about it. There's a lot of like fighting in between things and all these different factions and all this stuff. And we're just going to break it down throughout really, the rest of this year. And I'm going to give my thoughts on it. So let's go ahead and I'm going to choose this one first. 1 second. All right, let's go.
Exercise for weight loss almost doesn't matter. The idea of weight loss needs to come from nutrition. That's where the majority of the change will come from.
He is spot on. Your caloric intake, how many calories you eat in a day, will determine if you gain weight or lose weight. It's just a math equation. And this is how you burn your calories in a whole day. Look how little planned exercise burns calories. Nowadays, everyone thinks you need to get a gym membership right when New Year's comes around, and that's going to change your life, even though you've done it for the past 10 years in a row and have no change in your body. There are so many health benefits to exercise. Increases muscle mass, which will help you live longer, prevent a lot of diseases and cancers, has so many mental and physical benefits. I can make a whole video about it. Culture behind fitness always fixates on exercise. You should care about your micronutrients, your macronutrients, and your caloric intake. And I have clients that don't even exercise or go to the gym. They just get 10,000 steps a day, and look how much weight he has lost just because our diet is absolutely dialed. And he's still enjoying it. Here are some of his meals. Find ways to fit in your favorite food every single day and don't fear any food. We need to start changing our minds about fitness. 90% of your body comes from diet. I used to think it's 80-20, but nowadays I really think it's a 90-10 split.
Exercise for
Okay, so I have to say this is very black and white. So I know that he's trying to act like he's more nuanced. I think it's tempting for a lot of fitness influencers to say this because a lot of people are lazy. I'm just going to be honest about it. A lot of people are lazy and don't want to work out. But there's more to this than what he's saying. If we're talking purely calorically, there is truth to what he's saying from a caloric level. But where is that going to be relevant? That's going to be relevant for a very small number of people, aka, or a small section of a weight loss journey, which is basically vanity weight, maybe class 1 obesity onward. But even if we look at class 1, motivation, satiety, right? These types of things are very, very important to actually achieve it. So a lot of times fitness influencers, they have no knowledge of this because they've never experienced, and I'm not saying this is him. I think if he hasn't experienced this, I think he has lost quite a bit of weight. But I think if he hasn't experienced the lack of motivation, it's because he was very young when he lost it. Because dopamine and all that stuff, it changes, especially post 25. So you have to kind of differentiate weight loss from pre-25 to post-25. Now, those differences, they pretty much vanish, I would say, in a vanity weight era. But if we're looking at super morbid obesity, even class 1, it's going to be different. So let's go ahead and listen to this and I'll break it down piece by piece.
Weight loss almost doesn't matter.
It does matter in terms of motivation, satiety, and metabolic shift, carb metabolism. I mean, listen to all the things that it does apply. I think a lot of times they don't acknowledge hunger. They don't acknowledge motivation being an issue. People don't acknowledge those things at all within the diet culture world. It's just like you can just willpower your way through. It's not really possible for somebody who's super huge and over 25. It's very, very difficult to willpower your way through in that age range. It's that age range, size range. It's not going to be helpful.
The idea of weight loss needs to come from nutrition.
So that being said, obviously what you eat does matter a lot. A lot. But a lot of times fitness influencers will also say it doesn't matter what you eat, calories in, calories out, which I don't know about him specifically, but there's a lot of them that do, and we'll get into that too.
That's where the majority of the change will come from.
He is spot on. Your caloric intake, how many calories you eat in a day, will determine if you gain weight or lose weight.
So what is the danger with saying that? The danger with saying that without nuance is that somebody will hear that and think the more that I don't consume, the more I'm going to lose. And that's all that matters. So that's a no nuance version of what he's saying. Now, I understand a lot of people give people the benefit of the doubt and they say, oh, nobody's going to think that. That's crazy. Think of who you're talking to. Who are a lot of people that are super morbidly obese, even class 1? A lot of people have the toxic ritualistic. So they hear that and that's what they think. And there's no nuance described. There's no talk about how if you do go too far, you will fry your metabolism. You will have issues. What does it mean that you will fry your metabolism? You'll get a lot hungrier and a lot more tired, which good luck sustaining that downsizing if you're really hungry and really tired. Good luck. The two biggest physical barriers to downsizing. Good luck, babe. Not trying to bring back the MSP, but I still have the one here. Good luck.
It's just a math equation. And this is how you burn your calories in a whole day. Look how little planned exercise burns calories. Nowadays, everyone thinks you need to get a gym membership right when New Year's comes around.
So it's not about calories. It's about motivation, satiety. It's about sustainability. It's about building muscle so that your caloric burning goes up naturally within your body so you can create leverage. It's also about creating leverage against the fat on your body. Your muscle opposes the fat on your body. And you need to fix that ratio in order to sustain the loss. That's what you need to do. Which, what does it require? It requires lifting, especially if you're coming from a big size. It's extremely important. This becomes the difference between you actually get it done and you don't. I'm serious. And it also can be the difference between you keep it off and you don't. I'm serious. And what is the point if you put it back on? It's not good. It's not good to constantly weight cycle. It isn't good for you. You want to have a one and done for the most part. Now, I understand within super morbid obesity, and there are times when you go up a bit and then you have to come back down just because the hunger is so loud, which is very real. But still, you never go all the way back up and beyond. That does not happen. That should never happen. Okay, let's continue.
And that's going to change your life, even though you've done it for the past 10 years in a row and have no change in your body. There are so many health benefits to exercise.
Just as only counting calories and not caring about anything else also won't work, because people do that all the time. And a lot of people that do that, they don't even go to the gym and it doesn't work for them. I wonder why.
Increases muscle mass, which will help you live longer, prevent a lot of diseases and cancer.
It also helps you keep the weight off.
Has so many mental and physical benefits. I can make a whole video about it. Culture behind fitness always fixates on exercise. You should care about your micronutrients, your macronutrients, and your caloric intake.
You should. It's true. But you also have to understand too, he exercises quite a bit. So why is he giving this advice? I always question people like that, where they say certain things, but they're not living that. It's very interesting to me.
And I have clients that don't even exercise or go to the gym. They just get 10,000 steps a day, and look how much weight.
Yes, but how much is he going to keep off? You know, I want to see it in 3 years. I was 370 some, I don't even know, 374 in 2022, in August of 2022. I'm currently 222. So that's 3 years later. That's drastic. It has stayed off. That's a big deal. You know, in a couple more years, we're getting to that 5-year mark where supposedly I'm supposed to just go all the way back up. Apparently, I got 2 years to go all the way back up, according to Aubrey Gordon. But it matters. Sustainability matters a lot. And I will say, what is a part of my sustainability? Exercising, muscle building was a huge part of it. Was it fun? No, it wasn't fun. Did it slow down the progress on the scale at times? Yeah, it did. Particularly this year, it really did. Quite drastically. But it's worth it. So I'm not impressed by pure numbers. I'm impressed by long-term outcomes, which again, maybe that's the Lana in me of my Lana era, right? I want to see the long road. The road is long, we carry on. I want to see how long it stays off. That's important to me too.
He has lost just because our diet is absolutely dialed. And he's still enjoying it. Here are some of his meals. Find ways to fit in your favorite.
But will he be enjoying it in 3 years? It's just things to consider. Will he be enjoying it in 3 to 5 years? I mean, you have to think about it too. I think a lot of this stuff, it's marketing. I think that what's important to consider is just, are you being practical? Are you living in reality in terms of diet? And I think a lot of people don't want to think that way because the toxic ritualistic is like, ooh, no, I don't want to think like that. Because it's the complete opposite of how you're thinking about it. You're usually thinking about how much am I enjoying this? How much am I hating it? It's too subjective. You need to be very objective about your diet. You need to look at what is realistic, what is tangible, what is rooted in reality. That's what matters. It doesn't matter if I enjoy it that much. It doesn't matter if I hate it that much. It doesn't matter. Sometimes my mood will change on the day. Sometimes in the morning, I love what I'm doing, and at night, I hate what I'm doing. Sometimes it's switched. It doesn't matter, though, because it gets done, period. Because I don't base how I eat on how I feel. That is dumb. That is delusional. So, again, some of the things, and he's just trying to get marketing stuff. Nobody wants to hear what I'm saying. People do not want to hear this stuff. They don't. It's not marketable. It's not popular. But again, I'm an activist. We're going to break it down and we're going to talk about what it is. That's what it is. Stop thinking about it that way. Your feelings don't matter in regard to your diet. It doesn't matter. If we're talking about physical sensation, so like your hunger absolutely matters. That matters in terms of downsizing. That matters in terms of your diet. You should not be hungry all the time. If you are, you're not at a macronutrient balance. You're not figuring it out. You need to adjust. And it's okay to have to constantly adjust. That's okay. That's totally fine. But that is something you should consider. How should you consider if you subjectively feel good or bad about your diet on a day? No, not at all. It doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. Okay?
Food every single day, and don't fear any food. We need to start changing our minds about fitness. 90%.
So as far as don't fear any food, it really matters if you have a hormonal issue. If you do, then there are certain foods you do need to avoid or greatly reduce. I will always say most of the time it is definitely a gradient. It's not something where if you, like for me, being hypothyroid through much of the journey, if I had a drop of a seed oil, it wasn't going to ruin me. But if I just made seed oils a part of my diet and I just fried everything in a seed oil and I just went for it and I went ham and I just didn't give a fuck about it, and I had a bunch of protein bars that had seed oils in them, right? If I did all this shit, I would have been starving to death. I would have swelled up so much. I would have been so nuts and depressed, and even worse than I already was. I was already depressed. It would have been unbearably depressed because of the hormone issues involved. So it's not about you just fear food for a subjective reason. You have to avoid certain things if you have certain issues, which it's very typical that you're going to have certain issues if you are super morbidly obese. There's a reason it's called that, because you probably have other problems. So no, there are going to be certain foods that you need to avoid. But yes, you should have a reason to avoid it. It's not something you just feel in your heart. Unless if you just really don't like something, that's okay. But I'm just saying, like, there's a reason I avoided that. I even had to shift away from the clams. Now I'm focusing more on beef because the clams, it was a little bit too high in polyunsaturated fatty acids for me. And I was starting to backtrack hypo-wise because I was eating too many of them. I was starting to swell a lot again and have worse mood outcomes and starting to plateau more, because although I don't think I'm hypo anymore, I think I'm pretty good. If I push myself down that path, especially in a deficit, if I have too many polyunsaturated fatty acids in a deficit, I will go into a hypothyroid state. And I do have to be aware that winter is coming. So as the days get shorter, my hypothyroidism is bubbling under the surface. I have to be very strict still. So I had to make more adjustments to my diet. And now I'm getting it from beef. I'm getting iron from lean beef, which I didn't want to because it's expensive, but I have to in order to make everything work. And it is working. I'm starting to de-swell a bit more, which is good. And I'm also not as bad with my iron levels at this point, or I can tell like I have more energy. I've been working on it for 3 weeks. Now, that's just the beginning, babe. I'm probably going to be taking an iron pill for 6 months. You know, I'm probably going to be taking it all the way till March. So I'm just trying to break down where we have to consider things. Do I have to fear calcium? No, I don't. But do I have to consider if I'm eating milk and beef at the same time? Yes, I do. Do I have to consider when I take my iron pill? Yes, I do. Does that mean I fear coffee in the morning with my iron pill? No. So it's just stupid. You need to really think about the things that these people say. It's dumb.
Percent of your body comes from diet. I used to think it's 80-20, but nowadays I really think it's a 90-10 split.
Yeah, diet matters, but you're saying don't fear any food. Fear any food. You're just going for calories in, calories out only, which is not good. So I needed to provide some nuance there. All right, let's continue. All right, so let's cover fat acceptance's evil villain.
If you're trying to lose weight without ever feeling hungry, and if you're Googling ways to lose weight without ever feeling hungry, you're never going to lose weight and you're not losing weight. Because if you're Googling how to lose weight without being hungry, let me be blunt, you're not going to find it. You just won't, because you have to be a little bit hungry in order to lose weight. Not starving, not fainting, but that light, chic, little bit, that tiny bit of emptiness that shows that your body is living off of something other than muffins and cake and all food. It's dipping into your own storage. That's fat loss. We've been trained to think hunger is this big emergency, that it's terrible to feel hunger. Like, oh my God, I feel hungry for 20 minutes, I better panic. And what happens when you eat when you're not calm? You overeat and panic, especially us as women. So the second you feel hungry and you don't panic, that's when you know you're making progress. Hunger is your green light. The girls who get skinny are not running away from it. They're comfortable with it. They learn to get comfortable with hunger. And don't twist my words and take it too far. They know it's temporary. They know it's not going to kill them. And they know every single time they push through that urge to snack out of emotional needs, not physical, just because they are rewiring their brain. Because I don't know if you knew this, but 90% of the time we overeat is when we're not actually hungry. Emotional eating is how we overeat. So if you are physically hungry, you eat. Most of the times we're not overeating. We're overeating the times that we don't even feel hungry and we're not even supposed to be eating. So if you want good results that last, stop searching for the hacks that make you let you eat 24/7 without feeling starving. Stop trying to eat your way through weight loss. You're never going to get there. Learn to sit with a light hunger. Don't twist my words, and I'm not saying starving. You know, not to take it too far. Make it chic, make it normal. Because when you can do that without spiraling, that's when you're finally in control. If you're
So we have a lot to cover here. So what is the issue, I think, or where is this coming from? It's coming from the fact that Liv is against counting calories. She's very, very against it. So it's kind of like the way that I see it for my my tarot girlies and boilies, she's trying to make weight loss a Two of Swords experience, right? Which for those of you guys who don't know, it's somebody who has to choose. It's like a blind choice. There's a blindfold over the person's face, and they're holding two swords basically, and you have to make a decision. So it's about a blind choice. She wants you to make downsizing a blind choice, which if you're doing that, then you do have to rely on very, very subjective feelings like hunger, for example. Which, what do I mean by subjective? I just mean that you have to rely on how you're feeling at the moment to know if you're making progress or not, rather than having hard numbers or hard facts, which I don't suggest. And I certainly would never suggest this for somebody who's very, very big, because that hunger is wild. And oftentimes when you are super morbidly obese, you have to constantly manage your hunger, which for most people who are super morbidly obese, it typically means improving your fatty acid profile. So eating a lot less polyunsaturated fatty acids and eating a lot more saturated fatty acids. That helps with satiety. It's extremely important. And typically you've eaten tons and tons of those damn seed oils that everybody loves to show for on Instagram. So that means you typically have to eat a lot more beef and cheese and things like that, or even ice cream, to balance it out and not eat the other fats, which people hear that and they're like, oh my gosh, diet culture says those foods are so bad. No, but we're talking about why you're having it. It's to get a different kind of fat, because people are taught to fear saturated fat, which is not true. You shouldn't fear it. Certainly not if you're huge. You didn't get huge by fearing fat. You ate plenty of it. So don't act like, I don't want to hear somebody who's really big act like, oh my gosh, I'm terrified of eating that. Shut up. You're not. Because you ate plenty of fried foods to get that big. I'm going to be honest about it. So let's go ahead and break it down piece by piece.
trying to lose weight without ever feeling hungry, and if you're Googling ways to lose weight without ever feeling hungry, you're never going to lose weight and you're not losing weight.
So this is kind of true to a certain extent within super morbid obesity, but it's just because the hunger is so powerful. So you do have to be careful about that. Always get your nutrition up. You can typically have a lot more calories. A lot of people try to undercut it when they're super huge because they want to blast through it. But it's really about, when I was super morbidly obese on the channel, I constantly talked about it's like you're drowning and you have to sit there still and let the water come down each day. That tiny, and then sometimes it goes back up and you're like, and then you have to wait for it to come back down again. That is the emotional pitch of losing weight sustainably in super morbid obesity. It's tough. It's a patience game. It's like Chinese water torture. It's tough. But you have to think of it that way. You can't think of I'm thrashing around. I'm going to get out by thrashing around. No, that's more so like class 1 obesity and maybe even under that. Maybe certain aspects of morbid obesity. But the thrashing around stage, that's more so class 1, where you have to just work out a lot and you have to kind of push through. That's super morbid. It's not like that. It's patience is a virtue, right? You have to be extremely patient. So in that state, you will probably feel some hunger sometimes. Now, you want to have it be on a scale of 1 to 10, be a 3 typically. So if it's really bad, if it's getting to like an 8, then you flopped your diet that day. You didn't have good enough nutrients. You didn't have a good enough macro balance. And you're a flop, basically. And you might have to eat more that day because you can't just stay that way. If it's really, really, really bad, you can't just sit with that. And I understand she's saying keep it chic, keep it this, keep it that. I understand that from a vanity weight era. I understand what she's saying. The hunger is just so much less. It's drastically less. But somebody who's really huge is going to hear her and be like, what the hell is she even talking about? Now, when we're in class 1 and lower, your hunger is a lot less and you don't have to be hungry, in my opinion. I'm usually not hungry. I am hardly ever hungry. And it's just a matter of keeping a macronutrient balance. A lot of times it is about having high enough nutrition in this stage. Nutrition will make or break you. So I do think a vanity weight era is good for things like when I was having the clams, I was having a lot of eggs, right? These types of things are very nutrient dense. They have a lot going for them. Or you're having like your organ meats, things like that are extremely high nutrient for low calorie. That's going to be the difference between being hungry or not in an era like this. If you're eating a lot of bread, if you're having a lot of stuff that doesn't have much nutrition in it, and you're not having anything like what I said, those clams, that organ meat, this, very nutrient dense stuff, eggs, then you're going to be hungry, probably. If you're running on, chicken breast and rice, you're probably going to be hungry. So it also depends on what you're doing in terms of your nutrition a lot in this era. But for me, definitely there were moments where I was getting a little bit hungrier or I was just so tired, but then I realized I had the iron issue. It's fine now. I took the iron pill. It's fine. So you may have to supplement at times too because your margins are just so thin. So you need to be very aware of what you're taking in on a nutrient level within a vanity weight era, which again, she doesn't really advocate for. She advocates for it to be a blind choice every day. You feel it with your heart and you just go for whatever. That can work maybe in maintenance, but not when you're on the way down. I don't suggest that at all. I don't, because I don't want to be hungry. I'm not a person that wants to be hungry, and I'm not. So work on your hormone balance. Exercise, which nobody wants to talk about. You need to exercise. It helps with satiety in the long haul. So think about it. I'm going to go to the gym for at least 6 months before I get the benefits of it. Think about it. Long haul. Okay? People think about, I'm going to go to the gym for 2 weeks and I'm going to feel better. Not necessarily. Think about it 6 months to even a year. What if you thought about going to the gym as, okay, I'm going to get the benefit from this after a year, but it's a drastic benefit. That's partly why I'm not hungry, because I go to the gym and I've gone to the gym for years. Okay? So I'm trying to provide some well-roundedness here. All right, let's continue.
Because if you're Googling how to lose weight without being hungry, let me be blunt, you're not going to find it.
Well, I found it, so I guess I'm the magical girly pop, because I did find it. I didn't Google it, that's true, I didn't. But in order to get out of super morbid obesity, I had to find ways to counteract the hunger to actually do it, because it is so powerful. And for those of you guys, if any of you guys are super morbidly obese, or if you know somebody who is, let them know it gets better once you get out of that phase. It is nowhere near as hard. Even at this point, even in a vanity weight era, especially with my iron supplementation, it is nowhere near as hard as super morbid obesity. If you get out of that, you can go all the way, period. That stage is so difficult. And there is a narrative that being super morbidly obese, it's the easiest time to lose weight. And that is one of the most soul-crushing things that people hear in that state. And I'm here to tell you, as somebody who has lived it, it is not true. It is the hardest point. It gets easier and easier and easier. When you are just morbidly obese, it is half as hard as when you are super morbidly obese. So you just need to work to get out of that, okay? Have some hope.
You just won't, because you have to be a little bit hungry in order.
You don't have to. Maybe if you're trying to not count calories at all, then maybe, which is what she does, and that's what she advocates for. But no, other than that, no.
To lose weight. Not starving, not fainting.
I get what she's saying. She's trying to provide nuance there. I understand. And I'm glad she did that at least.
That light, chic, little bit, that tiny bit of emptiness that shows that your body is living off of something other than muffins and cake and all food. It's dipping into your own storage. That's fat loss. We've been trained to think hunger is
So I do think that there can be emotional effects. So maybe you are just a little bit more sad when you're losing weight, or you're just a little bit more tired. That's real, but you don't have to be hungry. When you do lose fat, there is a shift in hormones. There is a shift that occurs in your brain. And I've noticed it from a vanity weight era. It's very drastic in terms of I've become so much more internally reflective, not just about weight, but about everything about myself and everything about my life. And it's very overwhelming, but it's because it puts your body into this like spiritual fasting state. So you have to think about it that way. Like you're not crazy. You're fasting. You're like in a fast. So your brain goes to all these different places. And that's okay. But when you're bigger, then it can make some of your hormonal issues backslide a little bit. You can be more depressed. You can be more angry. You can, especially if you're a very emotional person, you can have a lot worse mood outcomes in weight loss. And you just have to be aware of that it is a part of it. But it's because you are dealing with that issue. And it is physical, especially at bigger sizes. So that I will say is true, but I still do not agree that you have to be hungry. I don't agree with that. Unless if we're talking super morbid, then there's a little bit there.
this big emergency.
Oops, and morbid. 1 second, I messed up. Okay, so she says here, we've been trained to think hunger is this big emergency.
To think hunger is this big emergency, that it's terrible to feel hunger. Like, oh my God, I feel hungry for 20 minutes. I better panic.
So I agree with this. I think it's not necessarily training. I think it's, again, this is very super morbid obesity coded, that your hunger is like raging. And I don't think people understand. It is so much more. So much. I don't know how many more times I can say it. It is so much stronger. And if you're going through insulin resistance issues, or if you're having hormonal problems, your hunger can be very, very loud and extremely like oppressive, basically. So that's where she's saying like, you're trained to think that's an emergency. It's not that. It's that for some people, it does feel that powerfully. It is that loud. However, if you get your hormones in check, if you start going to the gym and you do all the stuff that you need to do, then the hunger becomes a lot less. And so then even like right now, I'm hungry right now, but it feels like a 2 and I barely eaten. You know, it's 1:20 p.m. I had my orange juice with my iron pill. I got up super, super early. At like 7:30 or something, I came down, got my iron pill with my orange juice, went back to sleep, got up at like 10-ish. And then I had my coffee, and that's it. And it's 1:20, and I'm like, my hunger's at like a 2. If I'd have been super morbidly obese, oh my Lord, it would have been at a frickin' 10. It would have been a 10 right now. It would have just been crazy. But see, that's the difference. And people need to understand, like, you can go from one to the other, but you have to take care of yourself. And it's a long process. It's been 3 years. It's been even longer since I worked on my hormone health. That's been 4 years. We're going on 5 in March. It's a long time.
And what happens when you eat when you're not calm? You overeat and panic. Especially.
So I can understand that from a toxic ritualistic perspective. She's right. You don't want to eat out of anxiety. That should be one of your biggest rules to get out of the toxic ritualistic. Never eat because you're anxious. Don't ever do that. Eat because you're hungry. Eat because it's a holiday. Eat because it's your birthday. Eat because something else. But do not eat because of anxiety ever. That is deadly, because anxiety can never end. So you don't ever do that. That's not a reasonable condition to eat. And you need to think of it that way. So when she's saying that, I agree with her. Now she says, especially us as women, I'm not really a fan. She really, really overly genderizes weight. I don't like it. It's just one of the things I don't like about her as a content creator. But she's going to do that. It's for branding. It's for this type of stuff. I don't like it though. Personally, I don't. I think there are a lot of men who eat out of emotion. There's a lot of men who eat out of anxiety. There's a lot of men who freak out about being hungry. I just don't think it serves the cause necessarily. And yeah, we'll get into more of that later. There's more with her where I'm like, when it comes to this. But she tends to do that. I think it's more of a branding thing though.
Us as women. So the second you feel hungry and you don't panic, that's when you know you're making progress. Hunger is your green light. The girls who will get skinny are not running away from it.
So I don't agree with that. Unless if we're talking smo, then sure. But in general, you don't have to be hungry. You just don't.
They're comfortable with it. They learn to get comfortable with hunger. And don't twist my words and take it too far. They know
I appreciate that nuance.
it's temporary. They know it's not going to kill them. And they know every single time they push through that urge to snack out of emotional needs, not physical, just because.
Okay, but hunger is a physical need. So I think it's important to separate the two. I don't like how they're being added together in this. It's confusing.
They are rewiring their brain because I don't know if you knew this, but 90% of the time we overeat is when we're not actually hungry.
Okay, so make a video about that topic. It's too squishy. She bothers me a little bit because of that. Her messaging is too soft. So I find that a lot within the diet culture. I find people are either too hard line or too black and white, or Liv is actually the opposite. She's kind of too gray. It's like it becomes meaningless almost. Like she's reading poetry, and it's like, I don't want to hear poetry in diet culture. I want to hear an actual thought that is rooted in reality. It bothers me a lot, actually. But again, I'm trying to do these videos not because I'm telling you who to follow and who not to, but because you need to make sure you're following a lot of different kinds of voices and you're figuring out what's working for you, because you need to be skeptical of the things that people say. And you can be skeptical of what I say too. That's fine. But be skeptical of everybody. That's what I really need you guys to do, because do not make one person your entire guru or your whole, don't do that. Not within this phase, not within a vanity weight phase, because there may be times where maybe you do need to have something with seed oils in it to get to the goal. You're never going to hear that from me, but I'm not going to sit here and judge you if you do. I'm not a fan of artificial sugars. I think they make you hungrier, but I'm not going to be mad at you if you have aspartame and Jell-O to get through. If it gets you through, I get it, but it needs to be temporary. That's what I'll say. It needs to be temporary. You don't want to be living off of that for years and years and years. So again, there are gray areas. There's gray areas within all this. But she's a little too gray, actually, in my opinion, so it can go too far. She's blending it together. Physical hunger is a real concern. Emotional hunger is not a real concern. They're two different things, and this needs to be separated if you're talking about it. It's too unclear.
Emotional eating is how we overeat. So if you are physically hungry, you eat. Most of the times we're not overeating. We're overeating the times that we don't even feel hungry and we're not even supposed to be eating.
That's true.
So if you want good results that last, stop searching for the hacks that let you eat 24/7 without feeling starving. Stop trying to eat your way through weight loss. You're never going to get there.
So there is plenty of times where I don't eat, I guess, in the sense that I can go quite a few hours without eating. So I can understand what she's saying there. Like, you're not constantly eating all day to lose weight. That's true. I do agree with her there, unless if you're having very, very tiny meals and that's what works for you or whatever, that's fine. Again, I'm not coming for you, but I'm saying, I understand kind of what she's saying there. You just have to get to a point where food isn't the center of your life. That's basically it. Food is just a part of life. It's not your life. And that's something, again, that a lot of people in the toxic ritualistic, they don't want to think that way. It's the same thing too. You reach a point, especially I'm experiencing in my vanity weight era, which is where I'm currently at. You reach a point where your life doesn't center around downsizing either. I hardly think about it. I hardly do at this point. I'm mostly thinking about other issues and other things in my life, which is good, especially in a vanity weight era. But honestly, as much as possible in other eras, you want it to be like an underlying background thing, especially from class 1 on, because you need to live your life still. Now, when you're super morbid, it is kind of the center of your life, especially from a super morbidly obese perspective. Morbid, it's like half of your life, I think after that, though, it can be more of a running commentary in the background. It doesn't have to be like the star of the show anymore. And the further you get, the less relevant it needs to be. And you can focus on other issues at the same time. So that is not toxically ritualistic, to not be obsessed with the journey or obsessed with food or obsessed with these things, to think about other aspects of life and other ways of evolving, other ways of improving, which I think are incredibly relevant in a vanity weight era, where you have that spiritual reflective mindset in a fasted state. Use it for other things. I have been doing so much work internally on myself. I've been reflecting deeply, for example, on my attachment style. This is work that needed to be done probably years ago, but I can finally focus on it. I think therapy would probably be good in this phase for sure, or especially if you need somebody to help you walk you through these internal issues. I think it could be incredibly productive at this stage, and it wouldn't have to be about your weight. I think it's important to remember that weight is only one aspect of our lives, and it's only one issue. And at smaller sizes, it doesn't have to be the center or the star or anything. I hardly ever think about it now. I'm always thinking about other stuff. So, anyways, let's continue.
Learn to sit with a light hunger. Don't twist my words, and I'm not saying starving. Not to take it too far. Make it chic.
I appreciate the nuance there.
Make it normal. Because when you can do that without spiraling, that's when you're finally in control. If you're trying...
Okay, so I do agree you shouldn't spiral over it. So that's where I can agree with her. You shouldn't have an emotional reaction to physical hunger. So think of it that way. So yeah, there's a little bit of there that I understand and like, a little bit that I don't. Most of it I don't. But obviously I'm going to mostly choose people that I have criticisms of, obviously. I will still do some of these where I like the takes too. I think it's important to kind of balance. I don't want you guys to feel like I'm just berating everybody or I think I'm better than everyone, because that is kind of a diet culture stereotype, and it is very much a thing where I see a lot of people that act like they're better than everyone all the time, and it really irritates me because it's so off-putting. But anyways, let's go ahead and stop it here. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know what you think. I will talk to you guys again soon. Peace.